A Holler FM podcast. Hello out there. We are here tonight at Sippin with my sister. It is me, Chanel, and I have my co-host,
Vanessa.
And we are here talking about a thin line between love and hate.
It's a thin line between the love and hate.
And it really is a thin line between love and hate. I'm going to let folks know up front, pardon me for my voice. I am sick, which is the casualty that happens when you have kids. You get sick. So you might hear me sniffle a little bit. But I am here tonight because this movie is so good. Or it's so good to talk about it with you, Vanessa. That's probably the right way to say it.
I think that's probably more accurate. But whatever you're sipping on might help cheer up that cold. Alcohol does wonders.
That is true. That's a good point for me to say that I am sipping on beer tonight because it is hot in Alameda. We all know it is not as hot as it is out in the desert where you live. So I'm going to just let you know that I already know that. But I do have a Lagunitas ale. It's something easy. It was a really nice, kind of refreshing beer. It was a little bit hoppy, so I was kind of surprised by that. It had a little bit of a hoppy aftertaste, and I'm not a big fan of hoppy beers. But this one was okay. So that's what I'm sipping on tonight. What about you?
Well, can I just say that I did not understand a word you were saying about the beer, because I hate beer. I'm not a huge fan of beer. So when you're talking about the hoppy and stuff, I was like, okay. I guess that's a bad thing or a good thing. I don't know. But I
was just going to say, I think I found a beer that you might like.
We'll see. But I am still sipping on my Menage a Trois Rosé that I got from the Target. Because, I have to say, I'm going to say this. I feel like Rosé is a perfect wine for this theme that we're doing, the women's revenge. I feel like it's perfect.
Say more. Why is it perfect?
I don't know. It just feels right. I just feel like these women who are getting revenge, like there's drinking either white wine or they'll drink a rosé. I don't know. It just feels right.
Or like Glenn Close, they'll drink a red wine.
Yeah, she did drink some red wine.
But I agree with you. It seems like at least in the two revenge movies we've seen so far, it does seem like wine is a staple.
Yes. I'm not mad about that.
I think there is a time for a good beer. And like I said, I think I have the beer for you. I'm going to send it to you and because I can't remember the name of it. So I'm going to send it to you. And next week, you should drink the beer and let me know what you think of it.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right. And I was going to ask, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing good. We're getting down to the last 2 weeks of school. So it's like crunch time.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny because you guys are getting to the end of school and my baby is starting school.
Oh,
I know.
That's how it feels from going to the first grade.
Oh, man, it's like all the feels. But I've heard that first grade is very different than kindergarten because kindergarten, I was like a mess. I was pouring tears. I had to wait there in the little glass and just look at him for at least an hour before I could leave because I was just, all in my feels. But I've heard with first grade, you're kind of like, okay, cool, bye, I'll see you later. So we'll see.
We'll see. Probably by second grade, the newness has worn off.
I think so. I mean, at some point, you've got to get to a place where you're like, all right, kid, I'll see you later. And it's just, easy and it's not hard. Like maybe it's like kindergarten's the really hard point. And then when they go to college is the other really hard point.
Yes, yes. I remember Dad having, the
Ooh,
emotional breakdown
ooh,
when he took me to college.
ooh, I
And then
remember
he
that.
shooed me away. He shooed me away from the car. I guess apparently I was not supposed to come back. So yeah,
No,
so
I
college
remember
I
that.
hear is difficult. Yes.
Mm, mm, mm. I remember it like it was yesterday because I just remember my biggest memory was that Dad had dropped you off in the dorm room and he got in the car and it was just waterworks. His whole eyes were red and he had that kind of dragon face that you get when you crying real hard. And I was like,
Yeah.
I remember watching him being like, wow, that's crazy. Like he got some real feels about this. And I was looking over at mom and mom was mom. Like she just looked like, oh, I'm a little sad, but she kind of had it together. And then when you walked
Mm-hmm.
back out, I felt like that just made it worse. Like it was like, I thought he had waterworks and then it turned into a waterfall.
Oh.
It was bad.
But I have noticed that since I've gone back to nursing school, I feel like Mom has gotten a little bit emotional at times.
Yeah,
Like
it's
when I tell
been
her, like, yeah, I gave an injection. She's like, look at an injection. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's been
oh,
interesting because I think that it's almost been this reversal where when you left for college, dad was the waterworks. And now that you're at nursing school, I would say mom is, I mean, she's not like sobbing or anything, but she's definitely a little bit more emotional than I would say dad is.
yeah. I will say when I graduate, I do expect some waterworks from you guys. I'm just saying. Okay.
Uh, I mean, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be happy for you.
I want to see the tears now. Okay. I want to see the tears from you
I'm
guys.
I'm gonna shift us
If you
into
get
the
a ticket to
movie.
the graduation, if you get a ticket to the graduation, and when I walk across the stage, I expect you guys to have some sort of tears falling down your cheeks.
You
Amen, hallelujah, and
know,
praise the Lord.
I mean, if it doesn't show on my face, I feel it in my spirit. That's what I can tell you is in my spirit. I feel that emotion and that, just that heaviness being lifted off your shoulders in my spirit if they don't show on my face.
Well, anyways, let's not get off topic.
Let's get into the movie.
Yes.
And for our listeners, if you've been listening, you know that this is, as Vanessa mentioned, our Women's Revenge Month. We did Fatal Attraction, which I think we both felt like was a really good movie. As a follow-up, we did Martin Lawrence, A Thin Line Between Love and Hate, which, I mean, he produced. Didn't he do the story? And didn't he help write it as well?
Yeah, he produced it. He came up with the story. He and other members also did the screenplay, and he directed. I believe this was his directorial debut.
I mean, in some ways, this is like his, I am here. He's coming off of the successful show Martin. He's been doing stand-up comedy. He's had some small roles,
Mm-hmm.
but this is really his big, like movie release picture. I'm here, and he chooses A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. Came out in 1996. If you watch the movie, you can get all those 1990s feels. Like I was looking at some of Lynn
Yes.
Whitfield's outfits, and I was like, I remember when that was hot. I remember, the frosted lip with the dark eyeliner and how that was real
Mm-hmm.
cool. Nobody was wearing false eyelashes. Just saying, there's a lot of just like old school, 90s fashion in there that
Yes.
resonated with me. But here's the quick
Yes.
synopsis. For those who haven't seen the movie, I'm going to run it down. Basically, what happens is that Martin Lawrence is a player. He is got all these different women in the rotation, and he has his one kind of like childhood sweetheart that he has a lot of feelings for. It's Regina King. Shout out to Regina King, who just got that Oscar, though. Just, gotta give it
Yes.
up to the queen right there. But she's kind of his like childhood sweetheart that he has a lot of emotion for, but he's playing the field. He meets Lynn Whitfield. She is beautiful. She is stunning. She is independent. She got her own business. She's not trying to be bothered. He manages to squirm his little way in there, into his heart or into her heart. Says a lot of things like, I love you. I want to be with you. I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm.
They consummate it. And then guess what happens? He moves on to the next one, basically, when he realizes that he's really in love with Regina King's character and decides that he wants to be with her and put down his player ways. But Brandy says it's not about to go down like that. And Brandy is Lynn Whitfield's character. And that's basically the quick summary of the movie.
That's basically what it is. Fatal Attraction with black people.
That really is what it is, though.
Yes. We were saying after we talked about Fatal Attraction and we decided to do a thin line between love and hate, you were saying that you felt like a thin line was the child of Fatal Attraction. And I thought it felt like it was more of a cousin. I'm going to change my opinion and say that it's a sibling. It's like a sister or brother of Fatal Attraction.
What makes you say that?
Yeah. Because I just feel like Fatal Attraction is like your bougie auntie, right? Decked out to the nines, hair is on point, makeup is on fleek. That's Fatal Attraction. I feel like a thin line between love and hate, that's your like favorite uncle or auntie coming to the family reunion. You are looking forward to this person coming over because they are going to set the party off. They're like sisters or brothers. Because they follow the same trend as Fatal Attraction, but just a lot more hip.
Definitely a lot more hip. And I forgot, but we're going to bring it back real quick. Before we get into that, and before I respond to whether it's the baby or the sister or sibling, Vanessa, where were you when you first watched A Thin Line Between Love and Hate?
Okay, I remember this distinctly. I saw it in the movie theaters with our brother's ex-girlfriend. She took us.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Who was it? Which one?
I think her name was April.
Did he date in April?
Yeah, it was John's ex-girlfriend. I just remember she took us to the movie theaters to see A Thin Line Between Love and Hate.
Wow. So shout out to our brother, John. He's older than us.
John.
And he did, maybe you're right that it was his ex-girlfriend. I didn't even think about that. But I think that you're right that we did go to the movies with her and she took us to go see it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Do you remember how it felt for you when you watched it?
To be honest, I don't really remember feeling anything. And I think it's just because I was so young, I probably just did not pick up on the subtle clues. So kind of like Fatal Attraction, and it's like, oh, she's crazy. I think it was the same feeling of like, oh, she's crazy now. But I don't think I really picked up on the underlying message.
And yeah, I think that's interesting because I remember when I watched it when I was younger, I remember liking it. And this goes back to whether it's the baby or the sibling. Because I think when I was younger, I liked it. When I watched it this time around, I was like, I remember just thinking, and I paused for a second because I couldn't even think of the words. It wasn't like I felt like, ooh, I hate this, I dislike this. It was just more like, this is a pale imitation of a really good movie that came out, about 9 or 10 years before. And it didn't feel like it took Martin or his team that much creativity. With that said, I felt like Lynn Whitfield really embodied the crazy in a good way. But I just remember thinking like, this is not something that I would pay to go see again or that I would rewatch. To me, it doesn't hold up to what I remember in my mind thinking of the movie that was good.
I enjoyed it. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't say it's like a must-see movie, but I mean, if you're at home on a Saturday and it's on VH1 or TV1, I think it's like one of those, weekend movies to watch. Chilling at home, thin line between love and hate is on, so I don't really watch.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? If I hadn't rewatched it recently, I would have said the same thing. I think what really bothers me about this movie is, so remember when we talked about Fatal Attraction and we talked about Michael Douglas's character named Dan, and we were like, my perspective was that, yeah, Dan was a dick, Dan was an asshole, but Dan was basically like, I see an opportunity, I'm going to take it. This is a weekend fling. I'm being upfront with you. I'm married. Like, this isn't going anywhere, was my interpretation of Dan. Martin Lawrence's character is straight up playing females. Like, he's just playing them, like, and telling all of them what they want to hear. So to me, from jump, he was automatically unlikable. Because I was like, you're not being honest. You're not being upfront. So it's hard to root for you as the protagonist, even when, you kind of get your epiphany that you really want to be with Regina King's character. And I remember thinking, like, nah, you actually do deserve all of this woman's craziness, because she straight up told you from the jump she was crazy. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm getting into this and I don't know, which I think was Dan's situation in Fatal Attraction. Like, he didn't know Glenn Close was crazy.
Right.
And I probably should be consistent and keep either using actors' names or using the characters' names. So I'm going to try and be consistent. But I felt like Michael Douglas's character didn't know that. Whereas Lynn Whitfield made it real clear, I am crazy. I have some problems. And he decided to hit it anyways. So I was like, nah, not really interested. Don't really like you. And when I was younger, I remember thinking of him as the protagonist. But now I was just like, no, you deserve that. And if I was Regina King, I wouldn't have got with you, because you're not a good person.
Now, I hear what you're saying. Like I said, I even noted, I was like, yeah, he got it from the jump that Lynn Whitfield's character, Brandy, was crazy. And he also even got good advice, like from the club owner, I think his name was Snibby. Like, he was saying how, basically you want to be careful of these women you're messing with, because eventually somebody's going to get hurt. So you're right. He had all these warnings. He was told up front. He still went ahead with it. And I kind of saw this more as a commentary on what society expects from Black men. There's an expectation that Black men are the Casanovas. They're the womanizers. They're going out there to conquer and move on about their day. That's how I saw it as. So I just saw it as Martin Lawrence's character was basically buying into this, or playing this trope of, I'm the Black male, alpha, womanizer. I should get, all these women. Like, even his opening line, he was saying, I always believed that if God wanted women to be happy, he would make all men like me. So that's how I saw it as. So I saw him more as a victim of society's expectations of Black men.
Wow.
So I didn't see him as dislikable.
Interesting. Do you feel like Dan was dealing with societal pressures of being a white man?
No, I just feel like Dan from Fatal Attraction was thinking with his penis. That's what I was thinking.
See, this is
because there really wasn't any reason for him to cheat, except for the opportunity was there and he took it because he was thinking with his penis. I just felt like with Martin Lawrence's character Darnell, and not just Darnell, but also Bobby Brown's character T, Daryl Mitchell. I can't think of his character's name. I think it was Earl. All of them were trying to be these Casanova womanizers, trying to be like, yeah, I got all these numbers. Oh, yeah, I talked to her. Woo-woo-woo. Which I feel like, again, is from society saying, like, Black men have to be the womanizer. They have to conquer as many women as they can.
Huh. So I have a couple of thoughts. I think
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting to me is that the fact that Darnell, so and most of the characters in A Thin Line Between Love and Hate are such womanizers, to me makes them more unlikable than I would say Michael Douglas's character in Fatal Attraction, because they're making a conscious decision to deceive women and to tell them what they want to hear just so they can have sex. So it's all about a transaction for them that's going to boost their ego.
Right.
Whereas I would say with Michael Douglas's character, I felt like he was like, I see an opportunity, I'm going to take it. There's no reason for these men to be acting in the way that they're acting. And I guess that's the thing to me that's interesting about like societal pressures. I mean, I think there's a lot of pressures on Black men to perform and to act out into certain ways. And so I hear that and I can see that. I don't know if I feel like that necessarily makes them or absolves them. I think that's what it is for me, is that I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
absolves them, because I think there's a lot of societal pressures for white men to act in certain ways, to be dismissive of women, to be power hungry, to want to get to the top and not acknowledge the role that like white privilege and being a male gave them. Like I think there are all these things that happen with white men as well. And I'm not actually equating the two,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess I just feel like I'm like, no, he doesn't. The way the movie is written, it's actually this really uncomfortable trope that I feel like we've encountered before, where it's, oh, he's this womanizer and he has to get all these females, and oh, wait, but he met the one, and once he meets her, that's it. He's done with his playing ways, and now he's gonna, be with her and be a one-woman guy. And of course, Regina King doesn't put out, she doesn't have sex. So, I mean, I felt like I actually was like, this is uncomfortable. And the message that it's sending to me is that when you as a woman are upfront and honest about, who you are, and when you're successful and when you have your own
Mm-hmm.
business and your own money, and you try to kind of be clear about the terms of the relationships and what you need, it's okay for you to get trampled on. But, when you're the childhood sweetheart that doesn't put out, it seems like, no, I'm not going to do that to you. So I actually felt like the movie just perpetuated a lot of things around women and stereotypes that I didn't think were very comfortable.
Well, I mean, I think they did that because they needed a contrast. For example, like with Fatal Attraction, you have the contrast of Michael Douglas's wife, a woman who's been married for a long time. She hangs her, underwear and panties on the shower, brushing her teeth, toothpaste around her mouth, is more comfortable compared to Glenn Close's character, who's this very vivacious, sexual woman who's single, living in New York in her own place. So I think they did that with a thin line between love and hate to show the contrast. It's like you have Mia, who, is kind of like, I'm not ready, to have sex with you. We're just basically beginning this relationship, so I don't want to hop into bed with you. Versus Lynn Whitfield's character, who basically is like, he says he loves me, he says he needs me, I'm going to hop into bed with him. I think it was just to show a contrast. And for me, I kind of saw it as like with Darnell being like, okay, I love Mia, I'm giving up my womanizing ways. It kind of reminded me of the Steve Harvey quote, in which Steve Harvey says that a man will change his ways for the right woman. And I feel like that's what the movie was trying to portray. It may not have done it in the best way, but that's the message I took away from it.
Yeah, I think that's just bullshit. I think that's what I don't like about it. That's exactly, because I don't. And I think that's what like just gets to my core, is I feel like I grew up with like all these platitudes about women and their sexuality and what you can and what you can't do and how to be the right woman. And, and I'm like, actually, I don't feel like, Lynn Whitfield's character was wrong for having sex with him. I felt like she said exactly what she said. And she actually turned him down And then he was one that got an attitude and said, well, you keep playing mind games with me. And at that point, she should have just walked away because it's clear that he was an asshole and she didn't. And I guess that's what I'm saying is like the movie tries to paint that picture of you're right. Like, oh, for the right woman, I'm going to change my ways and I'm going to respect you. And it's like, no, you're just an asshole. Like you clearly don't respect women because you guilted this other woman, into having sex with you when she clearly wasn't ready and you were okay doing that. And then you're going to call her a bitch and say fuck you and all these mean things to her when she goes 5150, but she already told you she killed her last husband. So I kind of felt like, no, like you're a dick and this movie's ridiculous. And I think even the point about the contrast, like I get what you're saying. I think the difference and what didn't feel as uncomfortable for me about Fatal Attraction was that, yes, like there's one is like, somebody that's a wife and she's been married with him for 9 years and their relationship is more comfortable and it's completely different. But there was nothing about, to me, or how I interpret it, about women's autonomy and sexuality and like quote unquote purity. Like I didn't get that message and that overlay. Whereas I think with, a thin line between love and hate, it just reeked of that, what is it? A guy's not going to buy the cow if you give the milk for free kind of shit, which I'm just not into these days anymore.
Well, and you mentioned a good point. You said these days anymore. Let's keep in mind this movie came out in 1996. So this was before, the Me Too movement. This is before this strong push for women to be seen as equal. So let's just keep that in mind. But let's move on because we could probably talk about this for like 2 hours.
That's true. We could. I mean, the one thing I would just say is that I still feel like that message is perpetuated, even in spite of like the Me Too movement in like the Black community. Like Steve Harvey still says that. So does like a lot of like religious figures. Like a lot of the burden of being pure is on the women and the men are absolved from that. So it's okay for men to like go around and have sex in this movie and do all these things. It's not okay for women to do the same thing. So I think...
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, I think that's, what I'm probably reacting to and feeling like that's what comes out in this movie for me and why I think his character is so unlikable.
Right, and I get you. And I'll just, summarize. Like I said, it's not the most brilliant screenplay out there, But like I said, I think their attempt was to show this contrast between the two women. But you're right, especially in the Black community, there is this standard of, women need to stay virginal, what's the word I'm looking for? Wholesome, if they want to attract the right man, versus, a woman who is free about her sexuality and sleeps with multiple men, is seen as a hoe. So you're right about that. Like I said, just going off the movie, I just think the movie is just trying to show a contrast, kind of like what they did in Fatal Attraction. Like I said, the screenplay for A Thin Line Between Love and Hate is not the best. It's not as well written as Fatal Attraction. So I feel like I just kind of give it a little bit of leeway just because I saw that they were trying to do the contrast, and it just kind of fell like on that whole virtuous stereotype that's very prevalent in the Black community, especially in the Black church.
Yes. I mean, yes. And I think that that's something that I will say that I liked about Fatal Attraction is that in no way is Glenn Close shamed for being so sexually free. I mean, she's crazy. She's 5150, like, just not all there. But the contrast with her is not that like, ooh, she's, promiscuous and his wife, Ann Archer's character, is virginal. It's just more that like one is been a wife for 9 years and one is single and living in New York. And there's no judgment about sexuality in that. But you're right. We could talk about this for 2 hours because clearly I have very strong feelings about it.
Yes.
Before I move us to another section, though, any other thoughts or reactions about A Thin Line? Particularly because when you said that you watched Fatal Attraction, you were with Glenn Close with the battery acid until she boiled the rabbit. Do you feel the same way about Lynn Whitfield?
I drew the line at boiling the rabbit. I want to make that real clear. I was not with her when she boiled the rabbit.
Right. No, you were not. But up until that point, you were with her. Do you feel the same way about Lynn Whitfield?
I was really thinking about that too. And I think she took it to the extreme. Like, I can't agree with you, beating yourself up just to get him to be arrested for abuse. I was like, girl, don't be messing up your face for him and going to the hospital. No, sir. No.
I know.
And then basically wanting to electrocute him. I'm like, girl, just throwing the brick into the car could be enough. That should be it. Throw the brick into the car, take his tires off his car in front of the police station. Now, I was like, yeah, girl, do that. In front of the police station, she took, what was it, like 3 tires off his car?
3 tires.
Yes, I was with her for that, but yeah, she took it too extreme for me.
Yeah, I think so okay, I thought that Glenn Close took it to an extreme. So we both know that I was like, nah, I wasn't down with none of what she was doing in Fatal Attraction. It's weird because in A Thin Line, I'm like definitely not with anything that she did at all. But I was especially like things that actually revolved around creating physical hurt on my body. I was like, no, nobody is worth me beating myself up. But even, breaking his windows, talking all crazy to his mom, like all of that, putting the fire on the club and the arson with the club. I was like, wow, like I was going to say, I mean, you have so much money and you have your own company. One, it's like, why are you willing to risk it all for his raggedy ass? I didn't understand that. So that's one thing. Because I was like, what is he, a club promoter? You are like a millionaire or close to it. No, like it's not even worth it. You could have just had one of your banker people, put some hold on his credit cards and that would have been enough.
Right.
But
that would have worked a lot better.
Right. But it was like the power imbalance was weird because I could see why Glenn Close was being crazy because, she was like, I don't have as much, power as he does to do all these different things. But I'm like, your job is so much higher than his that you could have had his mama's house foreclosed or something like that. And I didn't feel like it was worth it to kill him because I didn't feel like he played her. Yes, he played her.
Yes, most definitely.
But I was like, he didn't really beat you up, so why you gotta kill him? I didn't get the motive or the set. And, Glenn Close, her character was just crazy.
Right.
But with Brandy's character, you were like, it felt like she had some real deep hurt. And so you kind of wanted to understand why she was doing it. And then you're like, I guess she's just crazy too. But her crazy is a whole different level of crazy.
Yeah, well, I thought with Glenn Close, her portrayal of the character was more along the lines of this character has a serious mental illness. Whereas I feel like with Lynn Whitfield's depiction of the character was just more of like, she's just flat out crazy.
You know what? That is exactly right.
Yeah. That's what it didn't feel like it was a mental illness at all. It just felt like I'm a woman scorned, and so I'm going to take it to the extreme.
That's exactly right. And that's a shout out, I think you're right, to Glenn Close. And not to shade Lynn Whitfield, because I felt like she embodied that crazy. Like, I believed she was crazy. But the difference was that there was a depth in how Glenn Close was acting where you were like, wow, she needs, like, someone needs to call the cops and give her, 72-hour hold. Like, she needs that because it's clear that she's had a mental break with reality. Whereas you're right with Lynn Whitfield's character, it felt like, nah, she's just pissed and she about to fuck it all up. Sorry, mom and
Yeah.
dad, because I realize that you're listening to this and I've been cursing quite freely. So I'm just gonna put that in there. But yeah, I mean that's what I I did feel that sense of, yeah, you're just really, really angry. But again, I remember thinking, I mean, he played you. Freeze his credit cards. Get him fired. But it just felt like for
Yeah.
the level of what he did to the level of retribution, without that mental illness being there, it didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would agree. I will agree. But I do want to say this, though, is that I want to say a shout out to Martin Lawrence for casting Lynn Whitfield. Like, I remember we were talking about The Labyrinth and how Hollywood tends to cast like an older male with a younger woman. This time around, Lynn Whitfield was cast and she's older than Martin Lawrence. So I think Martin Lawrence was like late 20s, early 30s when he did this movie, and she was like in her mid 40s. And she looked good.
She looked real good. And I feel like in general, she seems to always play the villain. And she still, by the way, looks really good.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you. So let's do a contrast. Do you know what else came out in 1996?
What's that?
The First Wives Club.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right?
I enjoyed The First Wives Club.
So that came out. It's not actually on our list of women revenge movies, but that is it's the white collar women's revenge movie.
But I don't remember them getting, I mean, they did get revenge on their husbands, but it wasn't to like the extreme of fatal attraction or a thin line between love and hate.
No, which is why I think it's interesting. And if you guys haven't seen The First Wives Club, as Vanessa mentioned, it's a good movie. It has Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn, Bette Midler, and those are the three main ones. And then like Sarah Jessica Parker, a couple other folks are in it. But the main point of it is that there's four women who are friends. Stockard Channing is the fourth one. And her husband ends up cheating on her and then leaving her for his secretary. And she just can't face the world. She ends up killing herself, but not before sending, her string of pearls and a note to her three best friends, which was Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn, and Bette Midler. And each one of those women, they're all older and they're all kind of facing, in some ways, situations where either their husband has left them, cheated on them, ran off with somebody younger. And so the whole movie is about these women getting revenge on their husbands, but also building this bond.
Right.
How does this movie, so it got released in 1996, same time as The Thin Line Between Love and Hate. They're both technically women's revenge movies. How do you feel like it stacks up? Or is it apples and oranges?
Yeah, like I guess I think it's hard to compare A Thin Line Between Love and Hate to The First Wives Club. Because The First Wives Club is, like you said, it's like a white-collar women's revenge movie. Like, I mean, the women are living in high-rises. Their husbands are wealthy. I think they're successful in their own right. So, I mean, I don't think it's a fair comparison.
And you know why I thought it was interesting, though, was because I would say that Lynn Whitfield is successful in her own right. But what I've always liked about The First Wives Club and felt like was more of an appropriate revenge was the idea of going white collar with it. So not having to destroy somebody's car or whatever it was, like boil a rabbit. But there's a way that you can enact revenge that to me doesn't mean that you have to beat yourself up or do anything to yourself or them, but you're still getting them where it hurts.
Right. I agree with you on that.
But I do think that there's something about the idea of there being a group of them and that camaraderie where that was nice. Whereas I felt like in Fatal Attraction and A Thin Line Between Love and Hate, it's kind of this solo thing where we see these two women who are very much isolated and by themselves and there is no one else around them. And you almost wonder, maybe y'all just need a friend or something? I don't know. But I remember Glenn Close was alone a lot of the movie, and so was Lynn Whitfield.
Yeah, you're right. Well, that came out in 96.
Other big movies in 96 they're not necessarily revenge theme, but the other one that came out that was really big was Jerry Maguire.
Oh, wow.
So very much the
Wow.
opposite of what we've been talking about. So if First Wives
Right.
Clubs is, white collar, revenge, Jerry Maguire is basically, an ode to love and being in love and figuring out how to be in love. And, Cuba Gooding Jr. is so good in it. Renee Zellweger's breakout role. So there is Jerry
Mm-hmm.
Maguire, which is not at all comparable to A Thin Line Between Love and Hate, but definitely one of the biggest blockbusters in 96. So here's another question for us to think about. In terms of how this movie stacks up on your list of revenge films, women revenge films. So we're not just talking about the ones that we're going to review this month, but just thinking about
Mm-hmm.
all the ones that you've seen. Where would you rank A Thin Line Between Love and Hate?
I think it would be more neutral. I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. It's like right there in the middle. I mean, because I can appreciate the message that A Thin Line was trying to do. Like I said, I just think the screenplay didn't really, it wasn't really well developed. But my favorite line in the movie came from Lynn Whitfield, and she has Martin Lawrence tied up in the chair, and he was supposed to come to her birthday dinner, but he decided not to because that's when he realized he was in love with Mia. So he spent the whole night with Mia. So when he comes to Lynn Whitfield's house towards the end, she knocks him out. She ties him up to the chair. She's like, "We're going to have my birthday cake," smashes it in his face. So my favorite line is she's telling him basically how men think that women are basically waiting around for their penises, like the penises are made out of gold or something. And her line is, quote, "We are tired of being your boy toys. We're not your hookers, your whores, or your honeys, and we do just fine without your dick and your money." Which I feel like basically sums up A Thin Line Between Love and Hate's message, and probably also sums up what some women feel about when it comes to men. It's like, if I'm with you, it's because I want to be with you. If I have sex with you, it's because I want to have sex with you. It's not because I think your penis is made of gold and I'm not going to stay with you because I feel as if, oh, I can't get anything better than this. Absolutely not. Like, I get so sick and tired of men saying, "Oh, she ain't going nowhere. She ain't going to find nothing better than this right here." It's like, for real? I'm going to quote my mama. You can find a free Peter anywhere.
Oh, wow,
That's a
Vanessa.
lie from Sister Fletcher. Yes. You can find a free penis anywhere.
I don't think she actually says penis, though.
She says Peter. You can find a free Peter anywhere. In case people don't know what the Peter is, that's basically means the penis. So I appreciate the message. I think that's the message they were going for. But like I said, the screenplay, the script did not hone in on that message, or it wasn't very clear. So I'm like neutral with this movie. Like I said, I think it's a good movie to watch when you're at home on a Saturday and it comes on TV One or VH1. I think it's like that type of movie. But would I
Um,
like go out and add it to my movie collection? Probably not.
I'm over here still laughing that you quoted Mom.
I sure did quote Sister Fletcher. You can find a free Peter anywhere. And if you can't find a Peter, you can buy yourself a dildo. Okay, Sister Fletcher did not say that.
No,
That
she
is
did not.
Vanessa saying that. Vanessa is saying you can get a dildo. Some dildos look like real penises. So
Woo.
you ain't got to stay with some sorry man because he quote unquote puts it on you. That's all I'm saying. I'm gonna sip on my wine while you talk.
Yeah, I don't even think I can follow up on that. I'm still over here laughing. Let me try. Lord, let me try. Wow, my cheeks are hurting right now from silently laughing. I can't. They hurt. They hurt. Okay, so oh wow, Vanessa, you threw me off because I did not think you were gonna go there. You threw me off, girl. We need to try and get a sponsorship from Adam and Eve over here. Okay, let me get it together. Let me get it together.
I can show you some Adam and Eve.
I'm like, can we call
the producer can bleep that out. Anyways, because I'm a good Christian woman, praise the Lord. Hallelujah.
Praise him. So I think A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. This is a movie that I think before we watched it, I would have been like, oh yeah, cool. It's on VH1. I'm going to get into it. I can watch it. Now I would think that after rewatching it, I'm probably not the biggest fan. I think it's because one, like I said, I didn't find anybody in the movie particularly likable. So there was no one that I was actually really rooting for. Like I wasn't rooting for Martin because I felt like his ass deserved what he got. I didn't understand why Lynn Whitfield didn't just leave after he basically was like, oh, if you're not going to put out, then you need to, go because I ain't got time for all this. So I was like, you could miss me with that because I'm over that kind of shit too. And I didn't even think Regina King's character was that likable, in part because she had no definition. So I think you're right that there was just there's so many places where the screenplay, the script or the plot just didn't really develop its characters and where you actually liked them. Like Bobby Brown's character was obviously the comic relief, but he wasn't even really that funny. And I was like, you know what? On a side note, if you got Bobby Brown in a movie, he needs to be breaking it down. Because at that point, Bobby Brown could still dance and get it on the floor. Look, can you get a song with Bobby Brown in it? Like, it just seemed like he should have been doing some kind of musical act or something. So I was like, put Bobby Brown back on there. Have him sing, what was that one song that he had? Not My Prerogative, but what's the other one I'm thinking
Every Little Step?
Every Little Step. That's a bop. Like, that could have fit in this movie. So I was like, that's what Bobby Brown needed to be doing. But yeah, I was just, the whole movie, I was kind of like, nah, there's other 90s, black comedy dramas that I would put my interest in over this one if I had to rewatch something. So it wouldn't be this, I think there are other ones that hold up better that I would watch. But I will say, with some shout outs here, did you catch Tracy Morgan as the bartender?
Was that Tracy Morgan?
Girl, that was Tracy Morgan. That was his first film role.
That.
Isn't that crazy?
I was looking at the bartender and I was like, he looks familiar. And I meant to go through the credits and see who it was, but I didn't. I did not know that was Tracy Morgan.
I know. I mean, I was looking at him and I was like, that looked like, no, it's not. And I went on my phone and I went on IMDb and it is Tracy Morgan.
Oh.
Right? That was crazy. And then it was kind of cool seeing a young Snoop because, now we just all see Uncle Snoop. And there's nothing wrong with Uncle Snoop. I love Uncle Snoop. But I was like,
love Uncle Snoop.
Look at young Snoop getting, he got his little dog pound. Okay. Like, I remember, that was the things that resonated with me were all the things of, in the fashion styles back then. I was like, this makes me want to get some dark lip liner and some frosted lip. That's what it made me do. I was like, maybe for my wedding, I'm going to bust it out 90s style at the reception. Anyways, that's what I felt like I'm more connected with. But a lot of the overarching morality pieces I didn't connect with.
Yeah.
And I definitely didn't get the message that you got. But after you said it that way, I can understand it. And I think she really committed to the role. And she said that speech very powerfully. So I think that is true.
She did.
It would have been.
I think that was the overall message, yeah. But it didn't come out clearly in the screenplay.
Well, it would have came out if she had managed to kill everybody and then, keep it moving.
But I also want to do a shout out to the late, great Miss Della Reese.
How did we forget about Della Reese?
Yes.
Man.
She was perfect for that role.
Man, it's, and it's funny because you watch it And I don't know if you have this, but I have this thing where I always remember people as I first experienced them. So whenever I'm watching like a movie, so with Della Reese, that's how she always is in my mind. And it wasn't until the movie was over with that I remembered that she wasn't even with us no more.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah.
But I just love it when they cast a good Christian mother of the church woman who cusses like a sailor.
I mean, and she has a very, very long history as an actress, a singer, in gospel, in jazz. You know, I mean, and I felt like her career had that longevity, and she was able to kind of continually shift. And so towards the 90s, she was doing a lot of the more, matriarchal roles, and she was still killing it. Man, and she just passed away like 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. But I mean, I just love though when you have, that righteous Christian mother who can cuss somebody out. I love it. And I think Della Reese was very effective in portraying those type of roles. As well as portraying like a very motherly role like she did in what was it, Touched by an Angel?
That's right. And I think my favorite role of the Della Reese is still Harlem Nights. I can say it right. Harlem's Nights. Because that one right there was like kind of, she had the same energy, but instead of being a mom, she was the madame, and she was, I was like, that's what I want to be, except I don't want my pinky toe blown off. I'll put that out there. And for a side note, for everybody else, if y'all who are listening who haven't watched Harlem Nights yet, you should go watch it. Eddie Murphy, what did he direct it? Didn't he write it too? It's another one of those movies.
Yeah, I think that was his first directorial movies, I think. I
mean, it's actually not really that great. I love Eddie Murphy, by the way, though. Eddie Murphy is funny. If you watch Eddie Murphy Raw, that still slaps. But Harlem Nights isn't really that funny, but I think it's one of those things that has nostalgia for me. But who knows? I could rewatch that and not like it.
Right.
So we've talked about a thin line between love and hate. You know what this movie is making me think, Vanessa? What if we go white collar for our revenge movie and switch up the order for women's revenge? So instead of doing Waiting to Exhale, we do She Devil.
We can do that.
Because She Devil is, we'll talk about next week, it's very different from both A Thin Line and Fatal Attraction.
Very much so different.
But also not the same as The First Wives Club.
No, it's not.
Okay, yeah, so let's do that. So folks, if you're listening, if you want to watch along with Vanessa and I, go check out She Devil with Roseanne Barr and Meryl Streep. Isn't that crazy? Because Meryl Streep is like, how many Oscars has she won now? I can't even count.
I don't know. I always say Meryl Streep can do no wrong.
Ooh, this is gonna be a good podcast next week because I have some thoughts about Meryl Streep.
She might have had some movie roles where it's like questionable, but I just think she's had more rich, feeling, Oscar-worthy movie roles that kind of overshadow the roles. I don't think there's any movies in Meryl Streep's repertoire where you're like, oh yeah, she shouldn't have done that. Like, for example, like with Emily Blunt, I absolutely adore Emily Blunt, but it's like she did Gulliver's Travel, and it's like, girl, no, you shouldn't have done that movie.
Well, maybe
I think she was under contract, but she had to do the movie. But it's like, girl, you should have used like one of those fake names and covered your face.
We should watch She Devil then and see, because I think I have some, like I said, I have some thoughts about Meryl Streep. I'm going to save it for the podcast.
Yeah.
But we should watch it with that lens of also thinking about, can Meryl Streep do no wrong?
Well, that's a good question. Because if I remember correctly about She Devil, I just feel like Meryl Streep still is shown in that movie. We'll see, though. We'll see. My opinion could change. I could be like, oh, yeah, Meryl Streep, she can do some wrong. We'll see.
We will see next week. So we want to encourage you guys, if you're listening to the podcast, if you love it, you can find us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Spotify, and Google Podcasts. If you are listening to us on iTunes, give us a 5-star review, leave us a comment. We want to hear from you. We're also on Facebook under Holler FM, and we are on Instagram under Holler FM. You can write as many comments as you want because Vanessa is not on social media, so she will not see them. No, I'm playing. I will tell her whatever we get on social media, so I'm just playing around. But yes, like us, love us, follow us. We want to engage with you guys. Let us know what you think about the movies we're talking about. If there's a movie you want us to review or talk about, let us know. We would love to hear from you.
See Devil next week.
All right, Vanessa, we out.
Boom.
Mic drop.
This was a Holler FM podcast.
And I think we're done.